he's in the best shape of his life. He's in his 60s. He's going to the gym regularly. He's doing the resistance training. He's doing the cardio training. He's even swimming. He's eating very cleanly overall. He's not the type to skip out on workouts. And he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing everything right. And that's the problem. And today I'm going to show you 3 things working against him. None of them was his diet. None of them was his workouts. And none of them were things that prior doctors or other doctors had spotted. Again, someone doing everything right, exercise, diet. He was even using a CGM, a continuous glucose monitoring device. And yet blood sugar kept raising. And there's 3 things, 3 underlying patterns that I'm going to talk about. And it's why you can't just skip to the last chapter of this story, like a lot of medical professionals might do. So one of them is something to do with iron overload and how it changes insulin and glucose metabolism. Number 2 is something that happens in the dark, early morning, before your eyes even open. And then number 3 is, say in his case, it weighs 3 pounds and yet it drives inflammation 24/7. And yet it does not respond to cardio. And that's where it could be said that discipline is the floor, not the ceiling. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand not just what was going on in his case, but the frameworks behind what was going on with him and what might be going on with you. This isn't just about him. It's more about the pattern. It's about recognizing the pattern behind the numbers, behind his numbers, behind your numbers. As always, this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice or create a doctor-patient relationship. Now, Daniel, we'll call him, had been on this kind of workout and improving his food over, I would say, about 1.5 years. So this is a long time, relatively. And he's in the best shape of his life. And he's done 2 rounds of CGM. And the numbers are 140s, 150s, 160s after meals that shouldn't raise it that high. And he knows it, and he's getting frustrated about it. Because again, he's doing the resistance training, he's Stairmaster, elliptical, swimming, he's low carb, medium carb, healthy carbs, I'll call it. Walnuts, berries, healthy yogurt, healthy teas. He's not raiding the pantry at night. And here's where I want to share what could have helped him, because he had the data. He had the CGM data, the frustrating blood sugar numbers after a low carb breakfast. He saw the rising spike in glucose even before he was waking up. And his appointment with me wasn't for 2 or 3 months later. And this is exactly why I built the Revive Guide AI, because it can interpret all of his data for him in between visits with proper frameworks from a holistic perspective that average LLMs are not going to be able to give you, or him in this case. And it would be able to guide him not as substitute for real medical advice, doctor advice, or other healthcare practitioner advice, but as an assistant for him to help think through his exact numbers and frustrations in between our visits. It could have given him insight into the dawn phenomenon, where the cortisol spikes before you even wake up, which causes the blood sugar rise, and what potentially to do about it before, like the night before and the day before. Because he was frustrated when he finally met with me. He's, I'm doing the things right. Why is this happening? I feel like there's not much more room for improvement, realistically speaking. And he didn't want to just go on metformin, which is an option, but that's not what he wanted. That's not what he was looking for. He was looking for a more well-rounded perspective, and what frameworks should he follow and understand? Because traditional medicine, let's face it, with an A1C of 6.3 or a fasting blood sugar of 121 or the numbers that I gave previously, the way traditional medicine looks at that last chapter in the book, they're gonna start metformin. And yet your body does not have a deficiency of metformin. And from a more functional medicine standpoint or a more holistic standpoint, when we see this type of scenario in somebody, we're thinking maybe there's a sluggish thyroid. Maybe there's chronic gut inflammation. Maybe there's chronic emotional, mental stress or physical stress. Obviously, the food component is not his situation, but we tend to think a little bit further upstream. And yet, sometimes when the usual suspects are innocent, even in functional medicine, it's time to look somewhere else entirely. First, I want to go back to this dawn phenomenon, the pre-game spike, the game being the day. And looking at his numbers, they were definitely trending up before he ever even woke up. Now, normally, the cortisol is supposed to rise before we even wake up because it's our get up and go. It's getting us ready for the day. In a person who is insulin responsive, the insulin can just drive down so cortisol goes up, glucose follows up, but insulin can drive that glucose back down in a well-regulated system. However, in the dawn phenomenon, in someone who is insulin resistant, and the insulin's not quite doing the job that it's meant to do, that's where the glucose just keeps going up while the cortisol is going up, which is frustrating for someone who ate a healthy dinner the night before and is going to eat a very healthy, low-carbish quality meal for breakfast. What do? Now, the hidden cargo for this gentleman was iron overload. Not crazy, insane iron overload, but definitely too much iron. When we have too much iron in our body, it can become oxidized. And an exquisitely sensitive cell in our body, or type of cell, are the pancreatic cells. And the pancreas is responsible for making insulin. And upon testing him, his iron saturation was at 50%, which technically is normal by traditional medicine standards. However, that is not optimal. That is too high for this individual. Now, there's certain athletes who are training who maybe that's a little bit more appropriate for, but that's under a special circumstance. For the average bear out there, the average you out there, that's too high. And through his total iron markers, his percent saturation, and his ferritin, all being on the very high end of normal, that indicates to me, and there's a little bit of inflammation according to other lab markers. And so that indicates to me that he's basically rusting from the inside out. His pancreas is being rusted. His beta cells in the pancreas, which produce insulin, are being rusted. And so his pancreas cells are working less optimally. The treatment, free, simply donate your blood. That's what I told him. Once a quarter, donate your blood. We'll keep monitoring to make sure that's a good frequency, but right away, go donate some blood. Get rid of that iron excess. Females, menstruating females, have a monthly way to offload excess iron. Sometimes that can go too far, but a 60-ish man doesn't really have a great way to offload excess iron naturally. So go donate some blood. Free, easy, simple idea, and trackable too. Now, I'd like to introduce you to the idea of the 3-pound furnace. This is visceral adipose tissue, VAT for short, as demonstrated by a DEXA scan for body composition. Now, DEXA scans used mostly in the medical world just to check for osteoporosis in the low back and hip region. Decent tool, but when you get a DEXA scan for body composition, it tells you your bone numbers, your bone mineral density, but it also gives you some other really useful measurements to track. One of which is the VAT, the visceral adipose tissue. This is the fat that is literally around our organs. So it's not the underneath the skin, the little spare tire. This is talking about the fat that's actually inside, deep inside your abdomen that wraps your organs. And the thing that's bad about visceral fat specifically is that it is the most inflammatory of all the fats. It jacks up inflammation by inducing cytokines. And one of the common labs that you can check is hsCRP. That's one. Ferritin would be another. Sed rate, ESR. Those are decent, just starting off inflammation markers to check. And on this gentleman, he had 3 pounds of it, which is too much. He's not morbidly obese or even obese, but it's too much. Right? But you don't know unless you do a DEXA scan for body composition. To take it back to Daniel, he said, I feel like I'm doing everything. What else can I do? And that's, again, the idea of discipline is the floor. It's not necessarily the ceiling. And as I see this, I see the dawn phenomenon happening with him. I see the iron overload happening with him. I see the visceral adipose tissue, that fat around the organs, present. And so there's this one story with these 3 chapters. And the cool part is just simply donating blood helps the iron overload. Will probably have the downstream effect of helping the dawn phenomenon. And something very simple. Now, this is not medical advice. The blood donation is not medical advice. Please, this is a story that I'm sharing. Okay. But berberine, the natural supplement berberine, is nature's version of metformin. What does it do? Why would we consider using it? A, because the body tolerates it a lot better than metformin. But it increases metabolism, it increases fat burning, and actually makes individuals more insulin sensitive. So 2 ways to help bring down unnecessary or unhealthy blood sugars and even start burning a little bit more fat. 2 very simple things for him to do that seem very reasonable. And then we track so that we know if it's enough, if we're heading in the right direction, or if it's not enough, if we're not heading in as good of a direction as we'd like. And then I'd be remiss this day and age not to mention something like a GLP-1, though I'm not a fan of the 1st or 2nd generations, but maybe the 3rd generation retatrutide, since this is not a retatrutide video, but it's much more balanced. It's much more likely to help you preserve the lean muscle mass instead of just taking away weight, which includes decreasing fat. But if we're also decreasing muscle at virtually the same rate, that is not good for longevity. It is in one hand, but it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And yet that's what the other GLP-1s do. Retatrutide doesn't do that nearly as much, and especially if married with correct protein intake, amino acids, and proper exercise, you can preserve lean muscle and actually even gain lean muscle while decreasing fat, including visceral adipose tissue, the VAT, the inflammatory fat. So I want to mention that, but something I'm thinking more about him, given where his testosterone numbers are as well, would be tesamorelin. Tesamorelin is actually FDA approved to decrease visceral adipose tissue. Wouldn't that be cool in this individual to decrease that and lower inflammation and improve insulin sensitivity, improve blood sugar numbers? So it is a very safe drug according to the trials, and that's one of the few peptides that's actually FDA approved for that purpose. Now, are we going to start that on him right away? No, we're not. We're going to go with the much more natural methods and see where that gets us, but we're going to monitor. So hopefully you understand how I thought through this. Hopefully you understand what kind of things to look for. This kind of thinking and frameworks can be taken and put to any situation, any health situation. And a really awesome way to do that is using the Revive Guide AI within the Revive Wisdom Circle where we combine the AI plus some live sessions. And so just throwing that out there, because it's all about figuring out what the right tool is for the right problem or the specific problem. So if you saw yourself in any part of Daniel's story, check out the free quiz resource that actually gives you some really good advice, or suggestions, I should say, as well. And even an opportunity to check out what I was talking about for a couple bucks. And it's totally worth a try.